And we're live. Yo guys, what is going on? Blossom is back and welcome back to another episode of Top Drives. Now, before we get started with today's video, completely unrelated side note, but you know that boxing thing I've been doing up to the point where you can hear that I've completely lost my voice. I'm really proud of it. We had an event yesterday and I got an award. And basically what it says over here is for demonstrating great potential in reaching greater heights and becoming the next superstar at Tribe, which is the boxing company and the gym that I work for. So I'm just really happy. I'm honestly like so proud of that. So wanted to share it with you guys, but anyway, if you can come to my class, please feel free to do so. But moving on from one prize to another in that amazing segue, I want to talk about what we can get from this pack, which is the Fiat AC Ginetta carbon fiber. I'll be calling it with the manufacturers in that order because I'm childish, but anyway, you guys know how it works now, right? Like basically two different tier lists. The first one is basically me going to be critiquing the cars and how useful they're going to be as investments, right? So not just the Tri series, if you're gonna put some upgrades into them, how useful are they actually going to be in the long run? And then I'll show you a separate tier list of how useful these cars are, literally only in the Tri series, not taking into account anything else. So without further ado, guys, let's get into it with the Kaiser Daily Driver, frequent provider, printers also, and of course Hog Garbage. I'm not gonna call it Val Choice until I manage to beat him in a 1v1 in the pack opening. So Val, yeah, you got your little window of clout, I guess. But anyway, guys, 3 super rares. I don't usually do super rares, but we are including 3 super rares because this is a very interesting final where a super rare is going to be very useful later on in the Tri Series final. So I decided to include 3 of them anyway. But these 3 are mainly included for the second tier list that I'm going to show you on how useful these cars are in a Tri Series standpoint. But from a general standpoint, let's talk about the first super rare, which is a Ginetta 3 G40R, okay? 50 MRA, no MRA, but who the hell cares, right? Traction control, ABS, performance tires. Oh, sorry, no traction, no ABS. No traction control and no ABS. But it has performance tires, so it's not a slick tire car like the other Ginettas. This also handles incredibly well, and it's a very lightweight car. Honestly, it's a daily driver. You know, it ain't no Lotus Elise Sprint, but it's still very strong. It's still a car that I would definitely respect, and it's actually one of the few lock-to-lock super rares I've just never had the chance of unpacking. So yeah, I'm gonna put that in daily driver. Now, next one is the Ginetta G4 Series 2 Coupe, and I mean, completely honest, bro, it's pernicious ulcer. It's super useful in the final, but outside of that, the only thing that this car kind of has going for it is, you know, it's really light. It's really light, so it'll be good on like a slalom, but the thing is, it doesn't handle like it doesn't have standout handling or anything. Like the Caterham is still a better car. So unfortunately, I'm gonna put it in pernicious ulcer. It's gonna be very useful for the actual final, but when it just comes to, you know, regular day-to-day events, the G4 isn't really a car that you're gonna be using too often. Maybe you can argue that it's a bit harsh for me to put it in pernicious ulcer. Maybe it is a frequent provider, and if you think it deserves to be a frequent provider, I won't disagree with you as well. I think either or in these 2 positions, it's fine. Now, next up is the Fiat 124 A-Bar Rally, and this I'm going to give it frequent provider. There is that front-wheel drive Lancia, which I do prefer to use because it simply just handles better, but the 124 A-Bar Rally isn't too bad as well. The main thing is that it is off-road tires, and it is capable of handling pretty well. At 323, you're going to get 6.3 for 0 to 60, as well as 84 handling. It has no MRA, but once again, who the hell cares? It's not like it's a testable car or a 1-mile car or even a dragster by right. Alright, now let's move on to the ultra rares. The first one's gonna be the Ginetta G60. The MRI on this is good. It's 85.9, so basically 86. It has really good handling as well, 87, which is also very strong. The main thing about the Ginetta G60 that really weighs it down is the 0 to 60. The 0 to 60 is very weak, especially for an RQ63. At the end of the day, I'm going to give it frequent provider. The main thing is, yeah, the MRA is good, but the top speed isn't very high. So it's not a car that I would put on the test bowl, and it's also not your first choice for the slalom or the G-force or the car part. Mainly because, although the handling is very good, there are cars with a lower 0 to 60 like the Zenith, which is the same exact RQ. So for that, I think the G60 definitely will have its moment, but it's definitely not like a top pick. Next up is the AC Cobra MK3 427. I love those numbers together, 427. I mean, if you're an American muscle car guy, then you know 427 has a lot of significance. That being said, though, it's a very useless car. It loses by 50 everywhere. That's about it. It has no MRA, 66 MRA. Handling isn't very good. It's kind of like, it's the opposite of the Ginetta G60. The Ginetta G60 has good handling, good MRA, but a bad 0 to 60. Yeah, good handling, good MRA, bad 0 to 60. But the AC Cobra has a good 0 to 60, but bad handling and bad MRA. So this has 2 pluses and 1 negative, and the AC has 2 negatives and 1 plus, basically. So yeah, not a very good car, pernicious also for sure. It's just gonna lose everywhere by 50. That's exactly what it is. Next up is the Prototipo, and this car, I mean, obviously is Der Kaiser. Best of the best. It beats the Alfetta. It is the OG. Well, not the OG, but I guess it's the new gangster on the block, I guess. It's just a very, very strong car. It handles incredibly well. It's a low 0 to 60. Obviously, the caveat for the car is that it's low ground clearance, but you know, who the hell cares? Just don't put it on a city streets medium or a city streets small. Next up is the Fiat Abarth 030. Honestly, freaking provider. Used to be one of the best cars back in the day, but now it's just very average. You know, handling is very average for an ultra rare nowadays. So many ultra rares capable of hitting 86, 87, 88, 89. That 85 is that isn't that interesting anymore. 71 of an MRA isn't too good. 4.80 to 60 is kind of just meh. Very, very average car, honestly. It is still very light, but it definitely isn't what it used to be anymore. So freaking provider. Next up, Ginetta G40 GTS, and that is going to be Der Kaiser. Mainly because it brings so much value for being so freaking cheap. 52 MRA, and you're getting 92 handling. This is a handling number that many legendaries fail to achieve. And I'm not even saying like Lamborghini legendaries, like even Porsche legendaries, or even Gumpert for some of them. Actually, yeah, Gumpert, because a couple are at 89, right? So yeah, it's just very, very, very impressive, and it's a great car for the slalom, great car for the car park, and it stays at that value at an RQ52 range. It beats, like, you know, some epics and some high tier ultra rares, so it's a very, very strong car. Next up is the Ginetta GT4, the G50. Now this is a very strong car as well, handles incredibly well, has a low 0 to 60, and it is very, very light, and it has good MRA, 91 MRA. So it's a very impressive car, one of the best 79s in the game. You can say it's a more hybrid version of the KTM Expo. Think about it this way, it's in between the KTM Expo, Celine S1, and the Farbau GTS. It's like a mix of that, you know? So yeah, it's a very, very strong car. Next up is the Ginetta F400, which is the discount version of the Farbau GTS. Farbau GTS has like 112 MRA or something, and the F400 has 70.97. How the hell does that work, huh? I'm gonna give it the same as freaking provider. Handling is the same as the G60. 0 to 60 is the only difference. Like that literally is the same thing. Like even the orange Ginetta has better MRA. The silver one is just what? A low 0 to 60 for RQ73, and you know, good handling. Top speed is high, but that doesn't really matter when you have an MRA of like 70. That's Subaru MRA. Next up is the Ginetta G56 GT, and that is obviously going to be Der Kaiser for the exact same reasons as why the Ginetta G40 GT5 is Der Kaiser as well. You're getting cars that are just immense value, you know? It's like literally the entry level RQ for that rarity, for their respective rarities, ultra rare and epic, but they bring such big handling values to the game. It's ridiculous, and also they're both incredibly light, but that's the same with all the Ginettas over here. Next up is the Abarth 124 Spider Rally, and I'm gonna give that daily driver. Handles okay. It really could be better for an epic, to be honest, like 87 at least, but it has traction control, it has ABS, it is light, and it has a very low 0 to 60 for RQ69. When you think about it in comparison, 3.9 for RQ69, and for 0.2 seconds less in this Ginetta, it's 10 RQ more. You're blowing my mind, bro. So yeah, it's got a low 0 to 60. I respect that. It's light, traction control, ABS. It's a decent car, one of the best Fiats in the game. Next up are going to be these ACs, and I mean, this one is hot garbage, and this one is pernicious also. The pernicious also, just because I've reviewed this car many times, like both of these cars very times. Like this car at least knows that it wants to be a dragster, and it has a way higher top speed. In fact, I'm gonna put it in freaking provider. This car just doesn't know what it wants to be. It's garbage. Next up, the RQ67 Abarth 130 31. I actually really wanted this, to be honest, from the qualifiers, but I got tier 2, not tier 1. Yeah, it's pretty good. Once again, one of the better Fiats. 0 to 60 isn't very strong. It's very, very bad actually for RQ67, but handles very well. 81 MRA, and it is very light. Once again, coming in at the weight of 1,120 kilograms. It's really not bad. I would say the higher up a frequent provider, but I don't think it's good enough to be daily driver or above. Next up, the Dallara is pernicious ulcer, unfortunately. It's very similar to the A-Barf, but it excels in the 0 to 60 compared to this, but then this A-Barf excels in the handling, 87 compared to 84. They both have very similar MRA, 81 and 83, but I'd rather just go for the car that just handles better, to be honest. And then next up with the legendary, so the ACs, I mean, I'll be honest, I'll be completely honest, they're hot garbage. They're just hot garbage. Once again, guys, our entry-level legendaries are usually always only going to be 1-star, and you know, getting 1-star from both of these ACs, yeah, I get it, 100 MRA, but that isn't saying much considering that there's so many crazy epics out there with insane MRA now, like the Yellowbird, for example, where these ACs don't even make much of a dent in any of the meta, or you know, in any of the races that you would put them in. Next up, and if they do win, if they do happen to beat an epic, a rarity lower, it's usually only by 50 anyway. So, very useless car. Next up is the Ginetta G55 GT4, 92 MRA, 93 handling, a very lightweight car. The only bad thing about the G55 really is that low 0 to 60, or when I mean low, I mean slow basically. 3.8 for a 0 to 60 is weak for, you know, an RQ80. It kind of is a watered down version of the RQ80 Viper, which is I think 3.4 93. Like, it's a massive difference. 0.4 seconds, and they're both RQ80. So daily driver is where I'm gonna put it. Next up is the Ginetta G55 GT3. Now this car, way better, incredible handling, 100 MRA, 3.0 for a 0 to 60. I will give this to Kaiser. And last but not least, the less crap of the crap, which is the ACMK, what is it, VI6, is it? GTSR, 96 MRI, a slightly lower 0 to 60 compared to the others. I'll give it pernicious ulcer. So in terms of, like, you know, a general sense, like how useful these cars are in terms of your own investment if you don't decide to, you know, compete in the finals, this is my opinion on what I think about the cars from the pack. Now, let's talk about the cars in a tri-series standpoint. So guys, to really understand what are the best cars for the final, I think we need to know what the track sets are going to be. So I'll show them to you real quick here in my server. So number one is Hill Climb 0 to 100 Twisty Circuit Interkarting in Mountain Hill Climb. So I'll tell you straight off the bat, I hate the track sets. I hate it. I hate it so much. It's very similar to the qualifiers. It's just, it's brain dead track sets, honestly. It's that one Japanese daily that everybody hates. You're only really allowed to use one slick tire car. I see a lot of people running 2 slick tires, but I asked you, you know, what do you do in this kind of track set? Because you're either going to put an off-road tire in the wet or a slick tire in the wet. And I think it is some kind of a pseudo meta. Like, I don't think it would be too bad to put a slick tire car on the test bulk, because eventually it has enough time to get a somewhat respectable top speed to not lose by too much, and then you put the off-road tire car on the karting circuit. But at the same time, it's like, it just doesn't feel right, you know. If you run 2 slick tire cars, half of the track sets are going to make you run your slick tire car in the wet in a tri-series final. It just feels weird. So I don't think that 2 slick tire cars is the way, but yeah, definitely really brain dead track sets. It's gonna give me a headache for sure. I do not enjoy this. But I will show you right now what I think is going to be my assessment for the how useful the cars are going to be in a tri-series standpoint. So the best hand, in my opinion, is this. Okay, so the 1 slick tire car being the Ginetta G55, because you know it's the best dry car there. The AC, because this is going to be the car that you want to use for the wet 0 to 100 as well as the wet test bowl, as it also has the highest top speed out of every car here. So definitely this is the car to use. For the off-road situation, the best one is the Prototipo. And then for the other wet situations, I guess, I would be running the Ginetta G4 because it is an incredibly strong car for the slalom especially. And I believe one other track set, what is the one? I think it's the other car park, I think. So very, very strong. And then obviously the A-bar of 124, a decent car to use as well for the wet situation. So yeah, I think that personally this is the best hand to use. Some of you might agree or disagree. And then obviously sorry, I spelled that wrong. Possible prize car winning will be these cars over here. Obviously these two ACs are garbage, but they're your second best option on the test bowl if you don't have this one, the GTSR. So they're possible prize car winning. The Jannetta G55 GT4 obviously is really good as well. Only reason why it's not in the top tier is because there's a car that's better. Same situation for the Fiat 124 to the Prototipo and the Jannetta G50 GT4. Once again, kind of the same thing, because this Jannetta is just better. The GT3 is just better. So but all these cars are still very useful for the final. It's all right. I'm gonna go to these two cars, and honestly, I didn't know how else to name this rank besides it is all right. I don't think that these cars are bad options, not even close to bad options, but they are definitely worse options compared to the cars on top of them. And then last but not least, we have only a mix of top tier cars, which are these over here. Once again, there aren't any valid choices or any, you know, hot garbage, none of that, not for this final, because when you think about it, at the end of the day, all the cars that you can unpack, they kind of do bring value. There's only one standard tire car, there's only 2 off-road tire cars, and they are needed because there is wet and there's off-road in the final, and then everything else is just slick and performance. It's not like there's any SUVs or any all-surface tire cars, or, you know, any saloons or any medium ground clearance cars with that. Nah, like all these cars, they kind of do fit, you know, the track sets that are in the Tri-Series final right now. So I don't think none of them are completely useless, but there are cars that are definitely better than others for the Tri-Series. But anyway, guys, that is my opinion. That is my assessment of the the Fiat AC and Jannetta carbon fiber. But anyway, guys, I hope you guys have a great day. Remember to stay safe. I hope you found this video helpful, and all the best in the final. Remember to stay safe, wash your hands, and blossom out. Peace.
Bro, this song just makes me so happy.
Me too.
Imagine being Asian in the 50s, looking nifty, leather jacket, looking sleek, look like Presley, look so deadly. Got a jukebox back at home, feeling jazzy, turn it on and play it slow, like the movies with the ladies.
They so fine.
Imagine being Asian in the 50s, looking nifty, leather jacket, looking sleek, look like Presley, look so deadly. Got a jukebox back at home, feeling jazzy, turn it on and play it slow, like the movies with the ladies.
They so fine.
Sit back, relax in my Bonneville Pontiac, hold tight all